Hey everyone, I am Lori Richardoni. I am your host, and this is A Taste for All Seasons. This is a cooking, cultural, and inspirational way to explore the world of food with the philosophy of cooking with the seasons. What a lovely way to eat. You are listening to WPVM LP 103.7 FM in Asheville, North Carolina. Today we'll be talking about local farming. We will discover the beauty and delectable benefits of growing our food in healthy soil that was lovingly nourished. I believe this is an adjunct to cooking delicious, simple food that we bring to our table to the people we care about. I realize that organically grown food can be more expensive and that many folks need to pay attention to the cost of ingredients. However, there are more cost-effective options that can still allow for healthy eating. For example, buying bulk is a way to bring in healthy ingredients that will last longer and can be utilized in more dishes. Personally, I let local vegetables have the starring role in the meals I prepare. This is my way of supporting my local farmers and providing a healthy, seasonal, nutritious meal for myself. As we cook our way through the seasons, we will seize the moment in late April when asparagus start to come into view. And I will offer a bit of kitchen inspiration with my deeply herbaceous asparagus and sorrel soup. It's vibrant, uncomplicated to make, has only 5 ingredients, and it happens to be gluten-free. So if you are a curious cook, you will want to stick around. Go get a cup of tea, get cozy, and join me on this scrumptious journey through food. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to WPVM LP 103.7 FM in Asheville, North Carolina. I'd like to extend a thank you to Davine Dial, whom has given me this opportunity to share my voice. Speaking of sorrel, my guest's today's farm grows some of the most delightfully savory sorrel I have ever cooked with. But before I welcome my guest to the microphone, let me take a moment to tell you about her. You're going to meet Liz Elmore. She's the manager of Thatchmore Farm, her family's certified organic farm, which is in Leicester, North Carolina. Liz was born and raised on the farm, and some of her fondest childhood memories include helping at the farmers markets on Saturday morning. That had to be really fun. Liz received her undergraduate degree in biology and worked for ecology and food nonprofits before moving back to manage the farm in 2018. Thatchmore Farm was founded in 1987 by Liz's parents, Tom Elmore and Karen Thatcher, whom I had the wonderful opportunity to meet in the last couple of years every Saturday at the tailgate market. They grow certified organic vegetables, fruit, mushrooms, and ornamentals, and they've been doing this for over 30 years. The family runs the farm with a small work crew, and they sell most of their produce at the North Asheville tailgate and West Asheville tailgate markets, and they also have a CSA and online store. So without further ado, here with me is Liz Elmore. Hey, Liz.
Hi, thanks, Lori.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just so delighted that you're here with me. You're my first guest on my show, and I'm thrilled. So thank you. So I have some questions, and my first question is, I see that your background is in biology and food nonprofits. So I'm really curious, what was the main reason for making this shift back to your family's farm?
Yeah, so obviously farming is in my blood. So by the time I left high school, or when I was reaching the end of high school, I knew that I needed to venture out and explore different parts of the country, and kind of different job opportunities. But in the back of my head, I always had like the notion that I was going to like move back and farm, or at least farm full time. And all my farming experience was it wasn't like a full-time farming job, and I wanted to know what that would actually be like. And so it was partly wanting to move back to see if that was like a path that would really fulfill me. And also, I think my dad finally said that he was getting a little bit tired of working at farmers markets after 30 years. And so I was like, maybe this is the right time to come back.
Okay. So is it now being on the other side of it? Was it the right time to come back?
I think so. It's like I feel very content with where I am in life, and farming has been really fulfilling for me. And I get to like take those different aspects of other jobs that I liked, and it kind of combines them all. So there's like, a big emphasis on so like working with the community, and also
Yes.
biology. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And what's it like working with the family for now 4 years?
I know. It's so most of the time it's really sweet. Of course we bicker.
Of
Like we would.
course. What
Of
family
course.
doesn't?
But I was realizing at other jobs, it's like I'm with these people 40 plus hours of the week. And often we had great working relationships, but like they're not my loved ones. And so
Yeah.
that's been really nice to actually just physically be around the people that I love more and kind of share this experience.
And an experience that you all feel passionate about. So that's the difference too, which I would imagine, because farming is challenging work.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it has so many different challenges. And, one thing that comes to my mind immediately, is the pests, because you're a certified organic farm.
Hmm.
So, what are the benefits for you and your family that make it worthwhile to grow organically grown food, which does have its challenges? So, what are some of those benefits for you?
I mean, so we're all passionate, and that's really important. You're not going to meet a farmer who flip-flops about whether they like it or not. Um, and but like I think just I'll explain why I really love farming, and like especially farming organically and on this kind of smaller diversified scale. But I've always had a deep fascination, and love for plants. And so the fact that I get to spend, most of my days like nurturing and learning about plants, like that's very rewarding.
I would think so. I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. Like your
Yeah.
farm grows so many different varieties of vegetables and greens. So I'm curious about the thought process because we live in a really biodiverse community, Asheville. You can grow almost anything. That's indigenous to this climate, of course, but it really has that biodiversity. So, what had your family choose the ingredients that you grow with, the plethora of ingredients that there is to choose from? How did you come to that decision?
Well, it's partly what the land grows well, and then partly like what we want to grow, and partly what customers want to eat. And that has evolved over the years. And so I think when my parents started out, they were only growing cabbage and head lettuce, and they
Wow.
were selling that all wholesale. And so now, as you talked about, we've transitioned to, selling mostly at markets. And, so lettuce is something that is still it's like one of our staples. But then when my parents built the heated greenhouses that we have on the farm, like
Yes.
that allows us to experiment and grow and kind of expand this growing season for warm season crops.
Which, by the way, because you're one of my go-to farmers, having your greens and spinach and kale throughout the winter is amazing. Now, do you call that your CSA? Is that part of would you call it your CSA, that doing that in the winter with your online store? That is an amazing thing to offer to the community. I know I'm really grateful for it.
Well, thanks. And of course, we're grateful for you. Oh, and I'll just plug Lori because she's been in it, because farming is a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
But I think Asheville's very special, and just Western North Carolina in general. That the community, it's a very special food community, and it really, customers like Lori has been so loyal to us for
Aw.
years.
Oh,
And you genuinely are grateful for the food, and then you like remind me, every couple weeks, and that's just really helps. It makes it really worth it.
I have my
Um,
hand on my heart right
oh,
now because it's just, it's a mutual relationship, and I think that farmers and the people that really appreciate that kind of eating, that kind of food, have a mutually grateful relationship. Tell us what's growing on the farm right now.
well, yeah. So we have most of the leafy greens are all outside now. We had to transition the greenhouses. So we have lettuce, kale, spinach, arugula, mizuna, mustard. And then the sorrel is actually tucked into the end of one of the greenhouses, so that's why it's able to produce most of the year. And then we have 3 heated greenhouses, which is really exciting. And so we have tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers growing right now.
I remember when I got your tomatoes because that wasn't really something that I expected to see at the market. And your father came out so proud with these tomatoes. They were
Uh-huh.
both yellow, the bigger ones, the yellow and red tomatoes. And I made the most incredible tart with those tomatoes that were so sweet and delicious. And people that I made the tart for said it was some of the best tomatoes that they ever had. So,
Oh, that's so
and
sweet.
that's, of course, it's something that your farm does, but your greens and different vegetables are a little bit more prominent than the tomatoes, but the tomatoes are really amazing. Speaking of sorrel, I'm utilizing sorrel in my recipe today that I'm sharing. So tell me how you use this, which I think is for a lot of people a unique, to me, undervalued ingredient.
Hmm.
How do you use sorrel, Liz? What do you do with it?
So mostly I put it in smoothies because it has that really beautiful, it's like a light green, kind of lemony, leafy
Vibrant.
green.
Yes.
Um, and then another customer gave me a really yummy recipe, like a potato sorrel soup, and I tried that last year and I really enjoyed that.
Okay.
Um, so I guess soup and smoothies is my answer.
It's great that you put it in your smoothies because sorrel is used actually for reducing sudden and ongoing pain. It's incredible for
Oh,
inflammation. And it has a really, really high vitamin C content in it. So it's super, super healthy. And I love that little grassy element that it has. It's just so delicious. So, Liz, if someone were thinking of growing their own garden, however small, even if it was a tiny little place on their terrace, what would your advice be in getting started to have some success as a novice?
oh, yeah, and anyone can grow anywhere because yeah, or like you said, even if you have an apartment, you can get a little box, or even something that I learned in one of my classes in college was called sack gardening. So you can get a big burlap sack and fill it with
Sack
soil.
gardening.
Yeah,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Okay.
Like an old coffee sack.
Yes.
And so I think maybe deciding what you want to grow is probably a good
What would you
step one.
recommend? Like someone has never done this before. They want something. They just really want to feel excited and start growing their own food. So what would you recommend to them that they should grow?
I think starting with leafy greens would be great because they're pretty forgiving, and with the exception of it being like extremely hot or extremely
Sure.
cold, they grow pretty much year round here. And so if you didn't want to start from seed, a lot of the farmers at market right now have transplants that they're selling. And so maybe just start with transplants, and then once you have that under your belt, you could go for trying it from seed the next season.
I think that's good advice because seeds, of course, is a little bit more challenging. And I don't know, I remember getting impatient when I planted the seeds. I wanted
Yeah.
instant gratification. So I think the plants, putting those small plants in there is probably a good call. What do you use for compost?
So we start we pretty much start all of our crops from seed, and we make our own potting mix. And so it's big bags of perlite and then a little bit of fertilizer. So we use something called Harmony, which is just baked poultry manure. Um, and then a little bit of perlite to fluff it up. And so that's how everything starts. And then when we'll plant into the soil, and so we'll incorporate whatever was growing previously in the soil. So either a cover crop or the crop before. We have to grow pretty intensively because we don't have much land. So it's like green compost for us.
It's interesting that you say you don't have much land. I've been to your farm. It's been a while already. I would love to come out again if you'll have me. So it's all perspective because it seemed like a lot of land to me. I'm not a farmer, so of course it's all relative. And I can say too, your lettuces are some of the sweetest lettuces. So that's partly why I'm asking about the compost too. Would you say in part that that's what has the greens have a sweetness to them? Does it affect the flavor?
I mean, soil affects everything. I mean, a lot of people say like, oh, we're not growing crops, we're growing the soil. And so soil health is really important.
The most important, wouldn't you say? I mean, without healthy soil, you're not going to grow healthy food.
Right, yeah.
Or delicious food for that matter.
Food. Yeah. And that's funny that it is all perspective because I joke about some of the other farmers at market being quote unquote big ag, but we're all like small diversified farms, but they have ride-on tractors. And so I think they're very large.
Oh, okay. So your family has no tractors.
We have walk behind tractors.
Okay. Homeschool.
Huh?
I said old school. I said homeschool.
Yes.
Old school. I love that. Is this your father's doing?
Yeah. So they bought a used one, I think when they first started, and it's ancient. And we just finally got a new used one this year, and it actually works pretty consistently, which is nice. It's not breaking every month.
Is your father, is Tom still, I mean, I'm sure he participates in a lot of ways. No more markets for him? He's leaving it in your capable hands?
Yeah. And then my mom will join again this season, I'm hoping.
Yeah, me too.
But my dad's still super busy, and that's also great because the three of us, we all have a kind of our own niches on the farm. And so I'm now overseeing production and markets, and then my dad gets to work on these really exciting kind of like mechanical projects.
Okay, his toys.
Yeah, because his background is as an engineer, and so he's been working with these wood chip and wood pellet boilers that we use to heat the greenhouses, and they require a lot of work.
I was going to say that sounds complicated. What's your favorite thing about farming?
Oh, that's really hard.
So what comes into your mind's eye?
Yeah, it's every day. I don't like being bored, and every day is just so different. Every season's really different. And sometimes it's stressful, but mostly it's just really fun and exciting. To get to like experiment and be creative. And then but also the collaboration part of farming I think I really love and find really rewarding. So, like always bouncing ideas off of my parents or our crew or other farmers.
Yes. Well, it's a collaboration.
Well, it is. And even with customers, I think I feel very fortunate to be here because people really want to share like successes and struggles. Like they really care. Yeah.
Well, I share with everyone about your farm. And, it just makes me think, Liz, too, because like as a chef and a teacher, I've started to journal certain ingredients or times of the year that I'm using an ingredient or something to kind of track its its success or lack thereof. Do you track your success or failure with certain greens? Because I would imagine there's a little bit of trial and error. How do you track that or, decide, well, this really, maybe we should try it in another place, in another way, or just another ingredient?
Yeah, well, we have many Excel sheets. And so like everything we start with comes from our crop plan that we make like at the beginning of the season. And that has evolved over the years. But when changing that crop plan from year to year, we're looking at, yes, like how it's produced and also what the demand is at market. And so if we're bringing, like 30 bags of spinach and selling out at 10 o'clock, then we should probably grow more, or we could grow more versus mustard greens. We didn't sell out. So, I love mustard, but not everyone does. So maybe we don't need to grow as much.
I would say, 4 bags of spinach, 1 bag mustard greens.
Yeah.
I know spinach is amazing. It's delicious. Liz, tell us how we can find Thatchmore Farms. So if you have a website, and spell it out for us as well. So how could folks find you?
Well, website is really the only way, or coming to see us in person. We're not very social media savvy.
No. Just, your website, and of course, the farmers market. Tell us where you will be this season coming up and when the market starts. I personally want to know this.
The markets have started. So we are at North Asheville Tailgate, which is at UNCA Saturday mornings from 8 to noon.
So this Saturday, which is the 17th?
Let me look. Yes, the 17th.
Okay, so the 17th at North Tailgate Market.
And then Tuesdays at the West Asheville Tailgate Market, and that's 3:30 to 6:30. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, it started too.
All right. Wow, wonderful. I see that. I'm like out of the loop. And please spell Thatchmore Farms, your website for people. Just spell it out.
So www.thatchmorefarm.com. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check.
Yeah. We want to make sure that we give the right website out, right? And now, can people go to that website, Liz, as well, and they can get to your online store? Are you going to be doing that throughout the season now, or is that something that's just more in the winter?
We'll keep the online store open as long as we have enough product to do both that and the farmers market. Okay. And yes, it is on our website, and that was the right website.
Okay, wonderful.
And it's under the product or where we sell tab.
Good. Well, Liz, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. And like Liz just mentioned, she'll be at the Tailgate Farmers Market in West Asheville Market on Tuesdays. You could see Liz's friendly face. She's always open to questions, providing the lines aren't too long. You are one of the farmers that have the longest lines at the market, and rightfully so. I mean, I am just so grateful for all that you and your family do. So thank you, Liz, for coming on.
Well, thank you, Lori, for having me. And I'm excited. This is the first podcast for me.
Well, wonderful. And it's not going to be the last. I have more questions. We're running out of time. So I'm just going to wrap this portion up. And again, Liz Elmore, thank you so, so much. And my regards to your parents.
Thanks, Lori.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to WPVM LP 103.7 FM in Asheville, North Carolina. In my last show, I talked about my grandmother's small garden in Brooklyn. And growing up in this way gave me the appreciation and the appetite for vegetables and greens that were homegrown. But also my grandmother had 11 children to feed. And I think having her own garden and growing her own vegetables was in part economics. And when I think back, that fact inspired a lot of the dishes my grandmother cooked, like escarole and beans and pasta fagioli, and a myriad of pasta dishes with big bunches of spinach and other greens. It was uncomplicated food, but delicious food that was made with love. As we cook our way through the spring, I'm going to share the ingredients for that vibrant soup I talked about earlier, the asparagus soup with sorrel as its guest, that has only 5 ingredients: asparagus, sorrel, yogurt, lemon, and some brown butter. And of course, salt. But salt is not an ingredient. Salt is seasoning, and salt needs to go in everything. That's what gives food its flavor. It's what brings out the flavor of ingredients. For the full recipe, it'll be on my website, lauriericcardoni.com. That's LaurieRiccardoni.com. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact me at lauriericcardoni.com, and I would be delighted to hear from you. Also, the station's website, WPVMFM.org, has a food section under culture that offers not only this asparagus soup recipe, but a plethora of delicious seasonal inspiration. Let me share a brief history of asparagus. The name for asparagus, which is a member of the lily family, comes from the Greek word meaning shoot or sprout, and is cultivated throughout the world now. But it also dates as far back as the leeks, which have been consumed for over 2,000 years. Leeks are another delicious vegetable, particularly when caramelized and folded into an omelet or into a savory tart. The asparagus plant originated in the Eastern Mediterranean countries, but also they found traces of wild varieties that were discovered in Africa. And they're delicious, especially when you eat them at their peak season, which is right now, 3rd week in April through May. And they're a great source of nutrients, which include fiber, folate, vitamin A, vitamin C, which have been known to help with digestion and lower blood pressure. And I hope this was a bit of inspiration for you to make that savory asparagus and sorrel soup I've been talking about. And also, if you have any comments or you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to Laurie at lauriericcardoni.com. I would like to extend a sincere thank you to all the listeners who have taken the time out of your busy day to listen in. It means a lot to me. Join me on the last Saturday of every month at 11 a.m. on WPVM LP 103.7 FM in Asheville, North Carolina, as we continue to cook our way through the seasons. As we continue the exploration of food and what has a taste so delicious, like waiting until May to eat strawberries, I will share my magically moist strawberry shortcake recipe that is a healthy, gluten-free, delicious indulgence. Also, some sweet and savory strawberry salads that include all the herbs and lettuces coming into our markets this May. And we'll have a surprise guest on the show, which will air on Saturday, May 29th at 11 a.m. on WPVM LP FM in Asheville. I'd like to leave you with a final thought. Food for thought. When you cook with the seasonal harvest and let the ingredients reveal to you its fate, this is what will have you become a good cook. In fact, one of my favorite chefs is Alain Pissade. He is a seasonal chef and the owner of a 3 Michelin star plant-based restaurant in Paris, Arpège. He never wrote down a recipe in his whole career. He allowed the ingredients to communicate the dish to him. And with time and patience, you too will start to trust your intuition in the kitchen. It has for me, but not without trial and error. And if at first it doesn't turn out the way you would have liked it to, you can try again tomorrow. Until we meet again, buon appetito.